Stefan here. So, yeah, I have a project car. An E46 325i, built in late 2002. And I wanted to add CarPlay to it. So what we're doing today is we are using the Eonon official CarPlay unit. Shout out to Eon Official for sending this over, and shout out to the folks at the E46 subreddit for being so kind and welcoming. That is not sarcasm, they really were. This is my first car after all. I lived in New York for most of my life, so yeah, there wasn't really any need for a cool car, but I was always a big fan of Grand Tour, a big fan of Top Gear. That's what I grew up watching. And so I knew the E46 was the way to go. This one is gorgeous. It's in a steel blue metallic with 125,000 miles, so pretty good for a 23-year-old car. Everything runs, everything works. I do have to replace the clips and the sunroof for that to work, but it was working the first time I used it. I probably jammed it up myself, to be honest. So yeah, today we are not focused on ignition coils or O2 sensors or any of the other stuff that probably need to be replaced in this car. Today, we are adding CarPlay to this car. So let's do that. So just in case you were wondering if it actually runs, let's turn it on now. The key's already in the ignition, but the M54 inline 6, they don't make engines like this anymore. They just don't. PC was on max. That works too, by the way. Both hot and cold. And there are, I don't even know how to get the words out. I didn't know that in 03, especially in like the 3 series, that they had seat warmers. That's incredible. This has seat warmers, Harman Kardon system. Yeah, they were doing it back then. Shout out German engineering. Okay, so let's get started. Alright, first off, let's start with a little hood unboxing. That means, you know, unboxing your car parts on the hood, on the bonnet, as they'll say across the pond. So, this, I do not want to scratch the paint more than it already has been scratched, to be honest. I want to hear from people in the comments, does it make sense to get PPF on a 23-year-old car, or do you have to, you know, restore the paint first and all that fun stuff? I don't know. I'm learning. So, boom, here it is. Wow, it really has that new car smell. That's funny. Let's see, what do we have here? So, I mean, like, it looks fairly standard. Yeah. Okay, cool. So, we've got the CarPlay unit itself. Fantastic. Let me stand off to the side. Right, so here we go. Let me just lay this out, because we do not want to damage anything. And we've got, this is probably the wiring harness. So this wiring harness supports both a backup camera and 4G antenna and GPS. So yeah, that's exactly what we have in here, made in China, expected. Yeah, and here's the installation tips, but we pretty much already know how to install it. I don't think this unit comes with the backup camera, but we'll add that after. That's a lot of extra work to do today anyway. So yeah, unboxed and good to go. So now we can worry about the install. Wait. It does come with the backup camera. Oh my god. This is going to be awesome. So to install the backup camera, you need to undo the bolts in the back left seat, driver's side, route it through the trunk, through the felt liner, that is where they keep the subwoofers, line it through the B pillar, the C pillar, which is essentially the weather seal that runs underneath the driver's side there, run it underneath the steering column, where there's a small gap where you can route it through the glove box to the fuse box inside the glove box, and boom, you've got the wiring for the backup camera. Honestly, I don't want to do this on my first go. I'll figure it out. But installing the CarPlay unit first is priority here, so we'll focus on that. Alright, so here you can see that I removed the trim area that's required for me to do the changes. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the wiring harness out. Pretty simple stuff. And I'm going to be ready to start attaching. What is the exact model number of this particular? It's the model E46 X7. Yeah. This particular variant fits the pin connections that I have here. Depending on the type of E46 that you have, you'll have a different set of pins. Mine came with the default business CD changer, but if you had one of the earlier not touchscreen, but one of the earlier GPS navigation systems that they outfitted to these cars in 2003, your whole setup will be a little bit different. So the model that you get is determined by that. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so our first order of business, let me just get a little bit of a zoom in there to make sure that we're focused up. Yeah, so our first order of business in this particular section is going to be just making sure that we get this pin connection linked up with this wiring harness over here. So it's not too difficult. What I'm going to do is just make sure that they match. So this is upside down right now. And then just, okay, so just want to show you, yeah, it takes a little bit of, you know, work, but you just need to make sure, okay, let me do that over. It takes a little bit of work. You just need to make sure that you slide the harness out and then back in again. Otherwise, it's going to be impossible to get it anchored in there. So now we can move on to the next step. Okay, so here's our beautiful CarPlay unit. You can see it's pretty straightforward. These are basically just all the default connections, the power, and then all of the cables that are going to get routed in. If you have other stuff that you need to attach to it, then you'll consult the guide. But right now we're just worried about getting it powered on and integrated into the rest of the dashboard. So let's get to that. Alright, so something I want to show you from the back seat while I'm back here. So basically what you want to worry about is making sure everything is pre-wired. Apologies for the door closing. You want to make sure that everything is pre-wired before you seal up all the screws and stuff. So as you can see, I've got the GPS connected right here. Let me just make sure I can see that. I've got the GPS module connected right here, and we're going to attach this to the interior of the dashboard. Some people will put it on top of it, but we want as seamless of a look as possible, and it's a pretty beefy module, so it can live inside of here. This is all plastic anyways. Then you've got your adapter, right, that's been attached, which goes to the default harness of the E46. And then last but not least, right, to get it just booting up, this is going to be your power cable, and you're going to plug it in like so. So let me get to that, and then we'll cut away to the next step. One thing I wanted to quickly point out is, even if this first time setup for you is a little bit intimidating, just keep in mind that thankfully a lot of these plugs and cables are labeled. And so you'll see here in order, I don't know if we can see that, I might have to get a little bit of a zoom in. You'll see here in order where they go on the harness. So don't worry about that. Even if you don't watch multiple tutorial videos like even I have, or this video, you can basically figure it out yourself. And then of course, there's the instruction manual. So yeah, let's continue. So right now, in case you're wondering, I'm just going through the painstaking process of removing the 3 screws that hold the glove box together, which you can see right over here. Sorry guys, I'm gonna have to pivot this over. There we go. Right, so just removing those 3 screws so that I can thread the 2 USB 2 adapters, which are plugged into the back of the CarPlay unit, and just loop them through the glove box. And so it'll meet right here, and then I can screw these 3 screws back in with their respective washers, and then we can also have USB connectivity. Adding the camera module will require similar work and that'll be a separate video where you just thread it through the whole car, through the back of the trunk, and all this other stuff. But for now, we're just trying to get this started and going. So let me update you once we've got that taken care of. Okay, so I had to learn this the hard way. I had to learn this one the hard way, but this is like car tinkerer stuff. Instead of threading the thicker USB cables through the empty part of the dashboard, just take the thinner data connection and find the hole with your finger. You'll see a light gap in there. And then it'll just slip right through and it'll be super easy to install. Like this. Alright everybody, so now we've pretty much got everything wired up. I'm not so sure if I'm going to include the microphone because, yeah. Although I might remove it and then add it back again when I add the backup camera, because that's a whole other ball game, right? And I'm honestly just not game for it right now. I want to make sure this works. So, without further ado, let's get the key in the ignition, turn it to position 2 to get the electrics on, and make sure the tablet powers on, and then we'll get to fixing everything and tidying it up so it looks integrated. So let me get out of the back seat and into the driver's seat. This should be interesting. As far as I know, it should all be wired up properly and we should see it come on. Beautiful. Would you look at that? CarPlay running in a 2003 BMW 325i E46 Sport. So yeah, it should work. I highly recommend that you wait for the whole boot up animation to make sure that everything is nice and tidy. Yep, there you go. And so now I've got both of them underneath there, and I've just got to keep pushing until it's nice and snug. Make sure that all the other cables are behind there. You don't want to crush or break anything. And then it should sit just like so. Beautiful. Okay, so we're not going to tighten down everything. Like I said, we're going to go over here and we're going to try to tuck. Well, we're going to get some of these screws in first, right? We're going to pre-screw them, and then we're going to tuck the trim right behind the screen. So I'll do a cutaway for that in a little bit. Alright, and as you can see, it is installed. I'm gonna have to get new anchors for the trim because it's not sitting properly, and if you know anything about plastic that's 20 years old, it eventually starts to crack. So those parts we can find online for pretty cheap, but otherwise it is seated properly. I just want, I'm a perfectionist in that way. I want it to be perfect. So, into the driver's seat, key into the ignition, and actually, yeah, so I just don't want the beeping sound to play. My phone is automatically connected and paired to this, so you'll see it says, please connect your phone to this device using USB or Bluetooth. Part of the reason why I routed the USB cables through the dash is because one of the 3 offered cables is actually a direct CarPlay connection. So if you don't want to use Bluetooth, you can just use a USB cable. But other than that, here you go. CarPlay running in all its glory. You got all the typical apps that you would see. The GPS works very well because we have a dedicated GPS module in the dashboard. And it's also talking to my phone. Even though I haven't directly connected a microphone to the E46X7, there is, I think, an input right here because it says microphone and it's a small cutout hole, right? But of course you also have your phone right next to it or somewhere in the vicinity. What else do we have here? So you'll see that these multifunction buttons, they also work at night. And the car is responsive, the E46X7 is also responsive to your car's lighting conditions. So if the headlights are on, it's going to switch and match the ambient lighting. And it's also going to switch the Apple Maps mode to dark mode, which I think is a really nice touch. Other than that, We've also got all the apps. So this is basically an Android tablet that's embedded into the vehicle. So you can get things like YouTube, Google Maps, the Netflix app is here also. You can set themes, you can connect this to your ECU and get turbo readings and stuff like that if your car has a turbo. I think there's also, you know, like a gallery, there's Google Chrome. So like if you connect through hotspot and stuff, then you can also make use of that, which is actually really cool. I don't imagine they'll be using it that way, but it's, you know, it's usable that way. And then of course, if you want to go back to the Apple CarPlay experience, you just tap the multifunction button, which, you know, shows you the rest of your apps. If you've ever used an Android tablet, this will be very familiar to you. And you just tap it and you're back in the Apple CarPlay experience. You can also swipe right to see some of the recent apps. And there's also a radio app. It's very robust, it's very responsive, and I kept the screen protector here until I'm done fully restoring the car. I won't remove it until then. But other than that, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed my little tutorial of installing this E46 X7 CarPlay unit inside of the E46 BMW 325i, and I hope to see you soon. All right, talk to you later. Wait, talk to you later. Okay, bye.